Magnus Carlsen won again today, so remains in the lead. In fact, he extended his lead. He's now ahead by a clear point as Anand only managed to draw. I'm not going to go through one of Carlsen's games again. I'd like to look a little bit further down the tournament to the game between Hikaru Nakamura from the United States and Anish Giri, who represents the Netherlands. Both very ambitious players. Giri is only 18 years old, but his 2012 was a bit mixed as he was concentrating on his studies. Nakamura, well, he also had a very mixed year last year. That's just his style. He's very ambitious, he always goes for it. He's quite a gambler. But he did finish 2012 pretty well with a tournament victory in the Netherlands and a solid result in the London Chess Classic with 5 out of 8 against very good opposition. Now, going into this game, Nakamura had 5 out of 8, Giri 3 out of 8, and I think Nakamura smelt blood in this game. He really went for it. Let's see what happened. Okay, Nakamura opened with 1e4, and Giri's up for a fight. It's a Sicilian. Now, instead of playing a main line with d4, Nakamura played, well, something a little bit unusual, b3. It's not a bad move, but you could hardly describe this as a main line. Excuse me one second. This is, you could say, post-Kasparov pragmatism. Kasparov used to like to prepare in great detail and tried to blow his opponents off the board with great opening preparation and his fearsome attacking skills. But post-Kasparov, players like Nakamura and Carlsen like to switch their openings and just to get their opponent on unfamiliar territory. That's the way things go. Okay, a6 from Giri. Basically, he's heading for a hedgehog setup, as we'll see. So, which we're about to reach very soon. Okay, so the pawn structure here, White has control of the centre, this so-called Marozzi bind, and Black remains behind the first 3 ranks, and this is called the hedgehog setup. Now, it looks very passive, but as we'll see, sometimes Black is able to break free, and then it's very dangerous. Okay, let's see how things develop. So both sides bring out their pieces. Okay, everything normal so far. Rook d1. Okay, so there's a little bit of pressure starting to build against d6. Now, you could say a normal move here would be knight d7, followed by b6 and bishop b7. That's the typical hedgehog setup. It's very flexible indeed. Problem is here, we can see that White might like to play bishop a3, hitting the d-pawn. And after knight c5, this break with e5. And, well, Black can probably play better than this, but you can see the danger that Black is in. This bishop can't develop very easily. You can't play b6, go for knight c6. This pin is annoying. White stands well. So I think that's Nakamura's idea. So Giri played quite precisely here. Rook d8, good move, opposite the queen. It's never a bad idea to play the rook opposite the queen. Okay, Nakamura went for the same thing, bishop a3, but here Giri played very cleverly, knight c6. Now, usually the best square in the hedgehog for the knight is d7 followed by b6, but Giri has spotted a nice tactical idea. Queen e3, knight g4. Okay, the same would happen after queen d2 straight away, but I haven't got time to go through all the variations. Okay, b5. Typical hedgehog break. What you're trying to do is chip away at White's centre and also open lines on the queen side, and in fact carry out a kind of minority attack against these pawns, trying to isolate a pawn. Okay, Nakamura took this. Now, why can't this pawn be taken? Well, first of all, bishop takes b5 would allow rook takes bishop. So that's the first tactical point you can see of b5. It opens up the a file for the rook. Second tactical point is, well, what about knight takes b5? Well, then queen b6. The queen hits f2. The rook is still looking at the bishop, and so the queen's also looking at the knight on b5, and this is very dangerous. If, for example, bishop f1, so that f2 is covered, then bishop a6, you can see how black's pieces have flown into the position. Threat, bishop takes knight, and rook takes bishop. Black already stands well. So knight d4 is possible, but then knight takes f2, and okay, these pins are very nasty indeed. Now white can survive this position with precise play. In fact, in this position white is a pawn down, but black has excellent counter chances here. The king is slightly exposed. All black's pieces are in play. This queen actually is on a very good spot, looking here as well. These bishops can come into the game very easily. d5 is happening. That's an important break in the hedgehog. And black's pieces fly into the position. So that's the kind of thing that I think warned Nakamura away from taking this pawn. So he just dropped the bishop back to b2. But now the pawn structure, actually, you can see things have already changed. Black has got rid of this pawn on c4. This one pawn on b4 cramps these two pawns on the queen side, and now it's black who has a majority of pawns in the centre. Now they don't look very impressive at the moment, but wait, they can allow black to control the centre at a later date, as we're going to find out. Typical hedgehog. Okay, bishop d7, and black can target this knight on a4 as well, as we're about to see. So Giri does that straight away. At the moment, black is looking very strong here. I think things haven't gone well for Nakamura. Okay, he took on b4, and now the rooks came into play. And if, for example, queen d2, this again is a typical hedgehog position. Black's pawns in the middle and on the king side remain compact, no weaknesses there at all, and they protect the king. But white has been left after this minority pawn attack with a weak pawn on the queen side. Also, the rook has threats towards the centre, but you know, black's plan is very clear here. You hit the a pawn. Black already stands better. Okay, instead of this, Nakamura played queen c3, so Giri avoided the exchange of queens, but the pressure is building. You can see the queen hits the pawn, and there's still a threat here. Okay, bishop takes, knight takes, and now this looks terrifying, with the queen and bishop lined up against g7. In fact, nothing's doing after knight e6, bishop f6, but this is really scary, and you can understand why the players invested quite a lot of time before they went in for this variation and around here. If knight c6, bishop f6 also saves black. Black is alright there. That might have been best, but okay, Nakamura, playing for the win, tried queen g3. Still looks quite scary, but in fact queen e4 is a good move, and again, typically for this kind of position, white's centre has completely crumbled. He's left with two pawns on this side of the board, but they have no influence over the centre, so basically black is better here. Okay, Nakamura pushes. I mean, this is a risky move actually, because it weakens b3, and well, black is taking over the centre. He threatens little by little just to roll these pawns down the board, and well, it's all about central control. If you control the centre, you control the board. Okay, bishop a3, bishop f6, good move, avoiding the exchange of bishops. Remember, black has the bishop pair here. I mean, by this stage, Giri has a clear advantage. But what I found impressive about Nakamura's play was that he just kept plugging away. You know, he's still playing for a win here, I think, he sensed that Giri is rocking in the tournament, not having a great tournament. So he was just throwing everything at his opponent here. Now, these pawns don't look very impressive at the moment with the black rooks here. It's hard to imagine they're going to charge down the board. But still, Nakamura is hoping that his time will come. Okay, but black has a clear advantage. But time was becoming an issue. Both players pretty short of time here. f6. The bishop came back. Now they don't look very well placed on the back rank, but actually, well, the bishops can spring out at any moment. And the important thing is that black has managed to consolidate his central position. It's impossible for white to attack this pawn chain. And now these pins are quite nasty. It's not easy for white to hold these pawns. One example, if b4, if white tries to push these pawns, then, well, you can see more pins are on the way. And if f3 supporting the knight, then knight f4, and then that knight comes into d5, hitting b4, but also looking at these tasty squares deep in the heart of white's position. Okay, rook a1 played, and now I think Giri maybe had a rush of blood to the head. He thought that he could roll white away very easily with f5. Now we'll look at that move in a second, but I think it would have been a better practical decision to keep this pawn chain intact, because white can't attack it, and just throw the knight in instead. Bring it round to d5, and I think white is going to find it very difficult to hold the pawns, keep everything together. Basically black just builds up very carefully and very slowly here. But instead Giri went for it. He lunged forward, and this does look very impressive, but you have to be careful. If you keep going, then these pawns can actually come under fire. This is not easy. So okay, now Giri played knight f4. Maybe he overlooked this shot, knight d7. I don't know. It's becoming complicated now. Obviously, if bishop takes bishop, then we can play knight takes rook. Okay. So Giri took on d7. Now bishop takes e7. Okay, so black has lost the bishop pair. Now black is still better here. Rook a6, good move. That stops any unpleasantness with bishop d6. But you can see how black's centre is just a little bit sensitive now. Again, it shouldn't be a problem, but really you need time to work out this position. It's so very, very complicated. Maybe the best move is knight g6, just to hold everything. A retreat, but I think the pressure on these pawns is going to tell. But instead, Giri made another lunge. He saw this attractive possibility, rook g6, hitting the g2 pawn. But now his centre disappears. Rook takes, king f1. It looks very dangerous for white, but he seems to be able to survive. Rook h2 threatens mate on h1. And now king g1 from Nakamura, inviting a repetition. If he plays king e1, then rook e8 is a very unpleasant move. You can see white is getting pinned to bits here, for example here, and well, now the king is absolutely hopelessly exposed, cut off on the 7th and getting pinned to death here. It's very nasty. So that's why Nakamura had to play king g1, and now Giri repeated, and after a little thought Nakamura repeated with king f1. King h1 is possible, but it's very risky. well, black can actually play for a win here, perhaps with rook takes f2. But okay, if black wants a draw, then rook takes b3 is possible. Let me just show you a funny variation. Rook a3 prevents rook h3 mate. Black can take, and bishop takes a4, hitting the rook. Rook takes. Now suddenly black looks like he's in trouble. These pieces are threatened. Rook d8 mate is threatened, and if the knight moves, then the rook hangs. Is black lost? No. There's a saving idea. If king takes, then knight e2 forks king rook. So the king has to come up, and now it's just a draw. Rook g1 and so on. So anyway, Nakamura decided not to risk anything with king h1 and just play king f1. And so the players repeated moves, and that's just a draw. I really enjoyed that fight. You know, both players were clearly playing for the win, but it ended in a draw. So the scores after 9 rounds: Carlsen 7 out of 9, Anand 6 out of 9, Aronian and Nakamura now on 5.5, and after that Giri is on 3.5 out of 9. Thanks for watching.